Welcome to the JD Bunkis podcast. You ever notice how the exact same chirp is used by Americans and Canadians depending on the result of Canada-USA hockey games? I'm just noticing this now because the States hasn't won best on best in a very long time, but how the Americans had lost that game, the immediate defense would have been, we don't even care about hockey. Thank God you guys care. We don't even care. And if the Americans win, which they did, the response from many Canadians was like, you guys don't even care about this. And then they're defensive. They're like, how dare you say we don't care? We love this. I don't like to do politics talk on this show. Like, it's just not for me. One, my employers hate it. Two, I don't personally like it because I don't really see the benefit for anybody. This is supposed to mostly be just a fun sports show. And like, yeah, sports and politics get mixed from time to time. And if I really do have a strong opinion on something, I really don't feel like I'm not going to be able to give my thoughts on it. But for the most part, I feel like a lot of sports fans, that's not what they're here for. They're not tuning into events to try and get political. And I think that there was actually a period of time, especially during COVID, where there was so much politicization of sports, it started to exhaust some people. And they were like, all right, I kind of just want to be able to go back and watch a game without having to take a stance on 3 different issues. And I think that's mostly where I sit. Like, I'm actually pretty interested in politics. But when it comes to sports, like, unless it's painfully obvious, I don't really usually find the need. It's not really the most important outlet for me. I think there's a lot of things to worry about. I think that we often misdirect our anger and our attention to things that probably we have, well, not just probably, that we absolutely have very little control over, and that we do have things we have control over, and we kind of neglect those things in pursuit of having people know where we stand on something. I've talked about this before, but we've gone from the greatest sign of you trying to show you were a good person, being empathy and understanding for others, to who can be the most outraged. Like, that was the pivot when it came to online discourse, when it came to anything political, is the way that you showed that you were on this side or that you were righteous was by being the most angry and the most upset. And frankly, I just don't think that's a great way to live. I don't think that's a good way for all of us moving forward, and it's brutal. And now you've got the Americans going to the White House today. They're celebrating their gold. And people have been messaging me, JD, like, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on this? I got so many messages about it yesterday. Like, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? And here's my thoughts. What's the point? Like, what is the point of sharing my thoughts on this matter? It's like, so you know where I stand? Like, you think that I have some sort of like an important platform on this issue, or like it's going to change anybody's mind? Like, that's the thing. Everybody's already made up their minds. There isn't very much room for conversations like this. It's just you're looking for either a reaffirmation of what your echo chamber is already telling you and what you've already decided, or to be mad if someone isn't in that same echo chamber. Like, that's it. And I, by the way, I view this on like a both side issue, right? Like, these guys are going to go. They're going to celebrate these things. There's going to be some people who just immediately dismiss every single one of these hockey players that goes to the White House. The same way that if they didn't go to the White House, the other side would be just tearing them to shreds and making their opinions about it. So I don't think that this is a one-sided issue. I think this is just generally where we are as a society, where you don't have middle ground for a conversation. And I don't think that the conversations online are particularly helpful. We obviously have algorithms that basically try to spice up every single conversation we have with either bots or the loudest voices and most extreme voices rising to the top. It's not a good space to try to talk to somebody when you have 140 characters or whatever new Twitter is. I have no idea. But this notion of like the Americans going to the White House being this like the most polarizing event in my sporting lifetime, I'm sorry, it just isn't for me. I think that, again, because of those reasons that I outlined, where it's like you can't win, that I'm like, I don't know what you're supposed to do in that situation. I genuinely don't. You get invited. You know you're going to get torn to shreds either way you go. You can't win. So who cares what anybody thinks about it? Anyways, Blue Jays, lighter note. We're getting a little we're getting into spring now. We finally got a Barrios start. He was throwing 92, but it's in the cold, or 91, 92, whatever it is. But I'm really interested in a whole bunch of different stuff that I want to talk about with Shi Davidi right now, senior reporter for Sportsnet, who joins me now. What's up, buddy? How we doing?
JD, it's 2 degrees here in Florida, and I've never found myself agreeing with you more. So I'm not sure what that says about the state of where the world's headed, but that's good start to the show, dude.
Thank you. Okay, I'm so envious of your 2 degrees. Like, you've got your little light coat on. I did the thing. I'm so mad this morning. I did the thing where it's like one of my last days wearing my winter parka. Like, it's minus 20 here or something like that. Something horrible. Like, you've got beautiful blue skies. Like, I would kill for that weather. But I forgot something inside, and I had to run back upstairs, and I caught my coat on a door, and I ripped my coat, like, on, like, one of the last days of winter. But, like, there's no feeling of you're dumb than when you catch an article of clothing on a door, like that jerk that your body feels, and the way that you just go backwards is, I don't know why, but it's just a horrible, horrible, horrible feeling. And now, I'm the boy without a winter coat, or walking around in tatters basically for the rest of this day. So I want to start with Eric Lauer. I don't really know what to make of this story, because I watched him speak to the media after he started his outing, and the body language and the way that he was talking was like, hey, I'm fine and everything's cool. But the words that were coming out of his mouth were like, hey, I want to be a starting pitcher, and last year I did some things for this baseball team. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. I know you're a reporter, but I'm paraphrasing what I essentially heard. That he's like, last year I made sacrifices for this team, and it ended up costing me an arbitration, and I didn't end up getting the money I want, and I might not get the role that I want this year with the team. And it kind of begs the question of, like, what is actually going to happen with this guy? Are we certain that he is going to be fine with being a long man when he's up for a contract extension? He's coming off of a year when he pitched well. And yeah, I want to dig into the arbitration process with you after this, but what is your just general read of where this guy's at right now, especially since there's now Scherzer rumors in the mix?
Okay, so let's start with this. I think two things can be true at the same time, in that guy wants to be in the starting rotation, and guy could be okay with whatever happens. And I think if you're an athlete, any athlete would just want an opportunity to win the role that they want, a real opportunity to win the role. And I do think Eric Lauer is going to get that this spring. Like, if he's really good and he deserves to be in that rotation, the Blue Jays will find a way to figure it out. But there are a lot of moving parts with the rotation right now. We obviously know that Jose Barrios is coming back, and after finishing the year with the elbow issue, which turned out to be rooted in his biceps, as explained to us yesterday. And he's trying to find himself again. And, he said he was off to a good start yesterday. Cody Ponce is transitioning here from the KBO, and the Blue Jays are interested to see how, if there's any real issues with the ball, and whether that changes some of the movement patterns on his pitches or anything along those lines. Obviously, Kevin Gausman is building up. Shane Bieber's on a slow, delayed ramp up. And there's an entire spring that still has to play out. So I think a lot of different things can happen. Ultimately, like, Eric Lauer is in a situation where he's pending free agent, and starters get paid more in free agency than relievers do.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fact of life. And so if he's the starting pitcher, and he platforms off that, that's obviously much better for his longer term future than not. But this is a guy who is a team first guy, who wants to help his team win and do what's necessary. And if there are 5 guys that are better than him, then he'll figure out a role and be ready to go in case there's a need down the road. So it's a long answer. And I think there are a lot of different pieces all happening at the same time there, and none of them are necessarily mutually exclusive. And just because one thing is true doesn't mean that another thing isn't true at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. So you're a competitor, like you said. If you're him, you want to be a starting pitcher. All of that makes sense. I guess the piece of this that you just said that I was kind of not aware of or hadn't really considered is that there are moving parts here. Because my understanding of this rotation was, even with Shane Bieber starting the season with the arm fatigue, that they're going to ramp him up slower, that we could basically put down in pen what the starting rotation was to start the season, and it was going to include Cody Ponce and was going to include Jose Barrios. But it sounds like what you're saying is that Eric Lauer actually is in the mix with those bottom 2 guys for a spot to start the season in the opening rotation. I just don't know what that would mean for either of those other 2 guys.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where the Blue Jays are at. I think they want to. Every team is looking to create as much starting length as you can at this point of the year, and you stretch as many guys out, and you wait to see what happens because every spring some guys do get hurt. There could potentially be some moves that happen, and I'm not saying that the Blue Jays are actively looking to make a deal, but opportunities could arise. Other teams have needs. It changes their valuations on certain guys.
Mhm.
There's still a long way to go before the Blue Jays are at opening day. And I hate to say it and I hate to use it, but it is true that these things often figure themselves out. So, we're sitting here right now trying to fit together the puzzle pieces, but the puzzle doesn't need to be finished now. The puzzle needs to be finished a month and a bit from now. So just a lot of things can change. And let's see where this goes over the course of the spring. Because yeah, I mean, the plan is the five guys that you kind of alluded to there to be in the rotation, but you're stretching other guys out too, and they've got an opportunity to change the way that you're thinking, and the needs could change over the next few weeks as well.
Okay, yeah. Absolutely, if there's an injury, then it makes things far less complicated. But assuming there isn't right now, like, uh, are we talking about like an actual realistic possibility that an Eric Lauer could jump a guy like Jose Barrios? Because yesterday, like, I didn't watch Barrios pitch. I didn't see the game. But I read your piece, which is now up on sportsnet.ca, detailing him discussing the injury, shedding light on the bicep stuff. But the most noteworthy thing was what I saw from, I think, Arden's tweet and your article, which is that Barrios was sitting around 91, 92 with the fastball. And you referenced the weather, so maybe that's an actual piece of this. It is the first time that we've seen him actually throw a baseball since he left with that injury. But listen, he's not exactly, a guy that's throwing that. This isn't the Yariel Rodriguez situation, right? Where it's like this guy had a ton of velocity and all of a sudden that velocity's gone. This is a much larger story. It's a smaller velo dip and the weather could explain part of it. But not too many starting pitchers in Major League Baseball that are greatly effective with a fastball with that kind of velocity. And I'm curious what your initial takeaway is of this.
Yeah, and so one thing I looked at is I looked at velocities across the board for every pitcher in that game, and almost everybody was down to a certain extent. And part of that is like you're the beginning of it's your first outing of the spring.
Yeah.
Was the Blue Jays' third game. Like you're not like you shouldn't be where you're going to be a month from now, right? That's how guys end up getting hurt. So I think you need to be careful about putting too much stock into the velocity. But part of the equation last year that the Blue Jays were looking at is that Barrios' velocity did dip, and that led to some of the struggles. And then
Mhm.
there's obviously the physical component to that with the injury. And then he spent the offseason working on his physical sequencing to basically the chain of motion throughout his body to try and find ways to move more efficiently, create a bit more force without putting more stress on his arm. So this is definitely something that is on his mind, on the Blue Jays' mind, as they're trying to help him get right. And and the piece that kind of most stuck out to me is that he said it's not necessarily related to velocity, but he said that going back to last spring, he had doubt in his mind about his arm health, and he
Mhm.
said he's through that now, and he feels good about where he's at physically. But if you pitch an entire season with questions about the health of your arm, like that's not necessarily a good sign. And for somebody who's got as much mileage on him as Barrios does,
Mhm.
that's that's something to watch. And you kind of almost took for granted that Jose Barrios is just going to make 30 starts every year and throw 180-ish kind of innings. But what if the toll of all that durability catches up with him at some point? And so, you know, you, every team always wants as much starting pitching as it can get. But you look at the way the Blue Jays are set up, and Shane Bieber is dealing with the forearm fatigue and a delayed ramp up coming off Tommy John. A lot of miles on Kevin Gosman. Jose
Mhm.
Barrios, same thing with Jose Barrios. Dylan Cease's obviously been super durable. Cody Ponce is, making that transition back to North America from the KBO. Like it makes sense why you would want as much starting pitching depth as you can, because you have to anticipate that something could arise over the course of the season. And so I think that's how I'm looking at Jose Barrios right now. I would not read a ton into that velocity, but if it's not trending upwards over the course of the spring, I mean, that starts becoming something that you have to watch.
Okay. So this actually kind of ends up sort of coming full circle here in terms of the Scherzer rumors, the stuff that Lauer's talking about. But it also, in my eyes anyways, adds import to keeping a guy like Eric Lauer happy or maintaining that he can be a serviceable, more than serviceable, a quality long man out of the bullpen. Because you think about like all those factors that you just mentioned, like you don't have Shane Bieber to start the season. That Gossman's an older guy. Like Gossman out of nowhere is talking about how, he's might retire soon. You're like, right, you're fairly old, and I don't really buy too much into that. But ultimately, I don't know if you can bank on 200 innings the same way when a guy is getting up there in age and just pitched a bunch in the playoffs. You have Savage, who I'm sure they don't want to overstrain the arm this season. They've got Cody Ponce, who is unproven from KBO coming over here, but don't know exactly how much they're going to rely on him. You just went over the Barrios nature of it all. Like, you don't really have too much down in stone in terms of guys that you feel uber comfortable going deep into ball games with. And so maintaining Eric Lauer feels like there is this added import to it that it's like, okay, if he goes to the bullpen, he's actually going to be like a huge necessity for this team. But also, in some ways, it's like you can't have him just end up being a one-inning guy ever, because you might need to stretch him out to become a starting pitcher with one injury.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And like, I don't think that this is like a glaring problem necessarily, right? Like, he has shown the ability, and he knows that he can do it, that he has the ability to be flexible and to adapt roles and, pitch a couple innings here, maybe come in short in a spot, then go longer a little bit. I mean, he came out of nowhere and threw the six innings in game 3 of the World Series, and hadn't pitched a ton before that. So he's able to do that when not many pitchers can. Like, that's immensely valuable too. So I think that Eric Lauer is going to throw a lot of important innings for this team. But I think that's where some of the flexibility comes in, and then that clashes against ultimately the import from a personal perspective, where it's going to be, for any pitcher, it's better to be a starter going into free agency than it is a reliever, unless you're the elite of the elite closers. So I think that, for the reality of it is, it just might end up being what it is, and he gets whatever the numbers are, and then he goes into the market and the team can give him a different role if it sees fit at that point. But I think a lot of this too just relates to the arbitration process and how archaic some of that is and how rigid some of that is, where it doesn't really value Lauer's contributions the way that it should be valued, because the system is based on comps. And so, I think there's two pieces to this that are going on, and that the way that he was rewarded through the arbitration process is different than how he's going to be rewarded in free agency. That's true for any player.
So, but that's super interesting, because is your read more that he is frustrated with the arbitration process or with the way the Blue Jays handled it?
It's the arbitration process, right?
Yeah.
The Blue Jays, like clubs don't always have full control over how the arbitration process. They obviously make some decisions, but there's a lot of input from the labor relations department of Major League Baseball, and similarly, the union is involved on the player side, because both Major League Baseball and the players union, they are fighting to get as big a number or as low a number as they can, because that influences future cases. So, like, there is the club element and how the club is handling it, but there's also the piece on both the Major League Baseball side and the Players Association side, which contributes to the process. And so each player becomes part of a larger battle. And again, like the way that the system works. So Eric Lauer is a unique case within the arbitration process too, because he had gone through arbitration earlier in his career with the Milwaukee Brewers. He at one point had a salary of, I believe it was $5.05 million. But then he came out of the system when he suffered some injuries and ended up going to Korea, came back over, found success, still had a year remaining in arbitration. And players who exit the system, someone hadn't gone backwards in salary from their previous ARB number in, I believe it was a decade. And so Lauer ended up becoming that guy. So there's some frustration over that. And that that, and that he kind of voiced it because he felt that it hurt him in his case that he didn't finish the season in the rotation, and maybe he wins the case if he's a starter wire to wire.
Yeah.
And so, like some of that is just the process. The Blue Jays could have maybe gone outside the LRD's recommendations and gone a bit higher. Didn't end up that way. They didn't find a pathway to settle. But the arbitration process is a reality for all players. It drives up salaries after their 0 to 3 service time years, where the team has full control. Uh, and in this case, it did not work out well for him, even though he did a lot of selfless things.
So yeah, he drops from his requested amount was 5.75 million. He ends up getting 4.4. So the salary does go backwards from the money that you're talking about in Milwaukee. If this is the case where we view this as archaic, like baseball is such a smart sport in terms of being able to evaluate someone's worth, why do you think that they are sticking with the process that is ultimately viewed by many as flawed?
Well, because it's collectively bargained, right? And neither side wants to give an inch on something that could end up becoming to the advantage of the other side. And then it becomes
Mhm.
also, what are you replacing it with? And look, getting to a CBA, as we learned last time, and as we are anticipating for next season, is incredibly difficult. Uh, these two sides fight over every literal thing that is
Mhm.
in that document, and it's very difficult for them to find any sort of middle ground. So to take a system that I think both sides would acknowledge to an extent isn't isn't is no it's is based on past evaluations. Like it's all based on counting stats. Like you can't really introduce war to it in an effective way. You can't use the metrics that front offices are using now, because that's not what it's based on. And then what you end up doing is essentially paying for players for things that maybe you don't value in the way that you do now. And that leads to that process where you know players are rewarded in a certain fashion through their arbitration years, and then they get to free agency and it's all projection and total contributions and things of that nature that end up getting players get paid, getting players paid. So uh, what are you replacing with becomes the issue. And then
Mhm.
within the broader context of two sides who are going to be fighting over the entire salary structure and some of the other elements that are at play at the game here, it just becomes almost impossible to try and find a replacement when the two sides see eye to eye on so little.
I'm so interested in all this starting pitching stuff because it's honestly just pretty unexpected for me. Like I came into this spring thinking, all right, there's a lot of questions to be settled with this team in terms of how you feel about certain things, but the rotation was the thing that you're most confident in now, right? Like you were like, hey, they signed Dylan Cease, they added Cody Ponce, they're gonna get Bieber back at some point. You Savage was the breakout of the World Series for this team. Like, yeah, they're kind of overflowing with this. And now with the Lauer stuff and the Barrios stuff and some of the, concerns that this team has with some of their guys, it's sort of developing, at least anyways, for me to be the most interesting focal point of the spring. And that brings me to this. That was before this. Our buddy Ben Nicholson Smith reporting that, quote, things have gotten more serious, end quote, in the last week between Max Scherzer and the Toronto Blue Jays. What have you heard? And yeah, what would the fallout be there?
So I before I get into Max, I would just kind of say, like, this stuff is kind of normal. That there
Hmm.
isn't a lot at this camp that is unsteady, and just how you're allocating your depth. Like, this is kind of where a team wants to be, and I think the fact that there's continued interest with Scherzer,
Hmm.
one, speaks to the volume or to the scope of impact that he had on this team, right? Like you talk to a lot of people around this club and they say, oh, we miss having Max around, right? Because of, and not just because he was a fun guy and because he's beloved, but just the little bits of information that he throws around and the way that he's able to have ideas and thoughts and the conversations that he triggers. That's part of it. And I think where the Blue Jays are at with him, I think they're trying to figure out how this might work and like how he fits the puzzle. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a degree of, does this work for a little bit further down the road?
Hmm.
In terms of a ramp up to May, June, or something along those lines. I just think there are a lot of conversations about how it would work,
Yeah,
and like figuring that out, because like at some point the Blue Jays will, in all likelihood, have a need, just
sure.
like every team ends up having a need. And so, right now, is that need pressing? No. And we're like 2 weeks into camp.
Hmm.
The likelihood of being ready for him being ready on opening day on such a buildup, anyways, is unlikely. So there's an element of some down the road on this, and I think that's where things stand there.
For sure. Again, injury stuff always opens up the possibility of something, right? Like that's a given. What I find more interesting in this is like outside of Bieber, in this moment, if things are getting more serious, right? Like as Ben put it in the tweet, that would indicate to me that there's potential to sign this guy before there is an injury or before there is a need, because one, you don't want to risk this guy going somewhere else, right? Like, hey, it's not just the Blue Jays that could suffer an injury and all of a sudden need a Max Scherzer. Like it's every other team in baseball, especially the competitive ones. So you don't want to maybe lose out on this guy. I have no issue with it because of the reasons that you detailed. Like the missing Max Scherzer part of this is like, this is what I was talking about all offseason. I'm not worried about the team's complexion when it comes to their group dynamic or their desire to win or any of those things. But you can't discount entirely the idea that this team could be removing Max Scherzer, Chris Bassett, and Bo Bichette, the three guys on the team that I would consider to be, as someone who's not in the clubhouse every day, understandably, the most like ferocious competitors on the team, the most intense three guys on the baseball team from this mix, right? So bringing back Max outside of just whatever his abilities are from a personality standpoint and the things that he can offer in terms of the things that he's seeing makes sense to me. If I'm him, I want that contract now because that means more money. Like you're signing me now. I'm starting to get paid on this date. I'm ramping up. I have some certainty of where I want to be. That all works for me. But when it comes to the other guys, even if Max Scherzer is not there, and even if we get to play the card of, hey, well, things usually sort themselves out. If I'm Eric Lauer and they sign Max Scherzer and I want to be a starting pitcher, that's another guy who at some point in the season is going to block me from that path. If I'm Jose Barrios and I'm throwing 92 miles per hour, and I know his is a little bit trickier because he's already getting paid, or less tricky, I guess, in some ways, because he's already getting paid so much money, and I don't really know if there's other destinations that are really exuberant to try to acquire Jose Barrios at this stage of his career. But if you're those guys and you see them sign Max Scherzer at this juncture, I don't know how you're not thinking about what your future is with this baseball team at some point come the season.
Maybe, but also, look,
Maybe.
surplus is good,
Yeah.
right? Like surplus is good.
From our standpoint, it's great as covering the Blue Jays and getting to watch the Blue Jays.
But also for teams, because teams that have surplus win, right?
Yes.
Like people will criticize the Dodgers for a lot, talk about the big contracts, but the one thing that they do is they have surplus everywhere on their roster. So they're insulated really well in case they have injuries or in the case they have things that go wrong, right? That's what helps you win. And this is a team that wants to win. This is a team that is very motivated after how close it came last year to the World Series. And they recognized the way that they got there. Now, does that create some scenarios at times that are maybe uncomfortable for different players? Sure. But again, like we're discussing potential issues that could arise months from now, as if they're a now problem, and they're not a now problem. And having all that surplus allows you to solve for the later problems that arise. And so I think, look, players are always wondering about kind of where they stand. It's on the Blue Jays to do a good job of communicating that to their players. That's something that, I'm told they did a much better job of last year, was a part of some of the wider resets that they did last offseason going into last year that really helped the club turn the corner after that dismal 2024. So sure, but I think there's a little bit of cart before the horse here. And like, I think you need to step back and like, any surplus is good surplus. If you have lots of surplus, your team is in a good spot. And good teams have that surplus on the big league roster. It's not just, we've got some guys at AAA who can help us down the road. Like you need that too, but you just need surplus everywhere. That's where the really good teams separate themselves.
Yes, totally agree. That's an awesome thing to have from a team standpoint and especially from a fan base standpoint. But ultimately, there are only so many roster spots. And the difference with this surplus would be you have to at least question the buy-in when it comes to two of those guys that would be a part of that in terms of accepting what their role could eventually be. Like with Lauer, that was the interesting part about the arbitration discussion is that, okay, maybe he's not as satisfied with just being a bullpen guy as we may have assumed coming into this year. Like, hey, he's just happy to be here because he's back from international play. That this is someone who's like, yeah, if I was to put together another awesome year as a starting pitcher and prove that I was back at doing this, you add these two seasons together, someone actually might pay me something. And then the Barrio stuff is self-evident because we've talked about it a million different times. So yes, definitely cart before the horse and definitely surplus a good thing. But I do think that it's interesting. And yeah, like this is the podcast game, baby. Like this is what we do. We have these discussions. Okay, so speaking of cart before the horse, you're going to love this. I saw Okamoto made one play at third base in his first game. And I went, yep, that's good. I've seen all I need to see. He can play third base. What have you seen down there? Because to me, that was actually one of the biggest questions of spring is like, how is he going to look at that position? Because if we were getting Bo Bichette highlights, the way that he's pumping them out from the New York Mets, not to disparage Bo, it's just a noteworthy thing, and I think everyone's aware of it. People would probably be a little bit more concerned with Okamoto at third, and so far, outside of like the one baseball that kind of bounced past him off of like, you know, a weird play, like from my vantage point, it looks pretty good so far. Like more impressive than I expected it to be.
Yeah, so two things. Talking to some Mets people yesterday, they were like, "Man, that Bo got clipped pretty unfairly in terms of like one highlight getting run over."
Yeah,
and
welcome to
over.
social media.
Right. Yeah. And welcome to New York. But I agree with you that one of the most interesting storylines to me this spring was how does Okamoto look at third? And you mentioned the play in the first game, and I thought the play yesterday, who was it? I think it was the sinker grounder to third base. He's like deep at third. He's almost at the grass, and you know it's a clean field. And then he throws it across the diamond on a line, and it's a good throw right on the money. And I thought that play was just as significant, right? Because one thing the Blue Jays have told him is that he can play deeper here than he did in Japan. He's got the arm to compensate for that. And you know, if you play a little bit deeper, that helps mitigate some potential range issues, allows you to make a few more plays. So we saw him charge a ball in, pick it up on the run, throw with his momentum going away from the bag, and then make that play. And then we saw him go across the diamond from deep at third base as well the next time out. So I think you put those two plays together, the Blue Jays are pretty encouraged with how it's looked defensively. Again, we're talking about a sample of two, so
Sure.
let's not draw too many conclusions. But I think that if he's making those plays, then how he transitions or what he looks like at third base over the course of the season is not an issue.
Totally. Again, this is all cart before the horse because currently the cart is before the horse. Like it's like you said, the second week of camp, but we got to have these conversations. I guess the part of it that is a little interesting to me is you're right. It's only a couple of plays, but the arm does look really good and he can clearly move around a little bit. And I had smart baseball people telling me and writing things that really did make it seem like, hey, this guy is a first baseman. The idea that you're going to play him at third base is a fool's errand. And I just would have expected it to be a little more butchery to start, like a little uncomfortable where it's like, hey, it's going to take this guy some time to settle in. So, yeah, I got to say I'm pretty surprised that it looks as smooth as it does, even though it's been nothing, even though I've seen essentially nothing. Like so many people seem to have gotten this wrong.
I don't know if it's wrong. Again, like it's got to play out over a long period of time.
Catch me in 2 months if he is making a bunch of errors, and I'm like, everyone was right.
Right. Yeah. We'll like post February 24th at 9:34 a.m. and say like this was where you were at back then.
Yes.
But I do think like in talking to people whose opinions I trusted, they said the bat is going to transition. Mm-hmm. We have to see about the defense, right? And I think where the Blue Jays got to when they signed him was that he's going to be competent enough at third base, right? That, when you combine it with the bat, this isn't going to be a problem. And they felt that there could potentially be some upside if he if he put in enough work and was able to just adjust it because he's got good hands and he's able to figure that out. So I think you put those pieces together and it's looked good in the early on. He's obviously put in the work, but let's see how it plays over the course of the season.
For sure. Okay, so before you go, what else is standing out to you so far?
I think it's just been a very straightforward camp, right?
Mm.
Like there's usually a bit of a hiccup, like somebody gets feels something or turns something, and there really hasn't been a lot of that. There's same kind of quiet focus that you saw last season, and at least to this point, it's pretty drama free, which is kind of what you want. And there was obviously some significant change in the offseason. Bo Bichette is not here for the first time in a decade, and that's different. But there's just like not. It's just a pretty straightforward camp. There are no fires per se, and I think that's if you're a team that's looking to get back to where they were a year ago, I think that's probably what you want, even though you went through some change.
Yeah, of course. You want to come out of spring with no injuries, and you want to come out of spring, like you mentioned, drama-free. The only thing, I guess, that would be left in terms of things I'm personally interested in is when I ask different people about the Blue Jays, like who are around the Blue Jays, I am surprised that they give me quite a variance in terms of answers for the last couple of guys that are going to end up getting jobs out of the bullpen. You feel the same?
I think I think that's pretty open right now,
Yeah.
right? Because Jimmy Garcia is not going to be ready. He told me 100% he's not going to be ready for opening day. So there's a spot there. There's 2 Rule 5 guys in camp who, if they show out, maybe the Blue Jays look at carrying one of them and seeing if they can sneak him through for a period of time. You've got Mason Fluharty, who's and Braden Fisher are looking to build on last year and who have options but deserve to be on this team.
Yeah.
Tommy Nance is an interesting guy who's out of options. There's some depth and some pieces there that the Blue Jays could play it in a few different ways depending on how they want to run the rosters. So, and they have they have that flexibility now because Garcia is not going to be ready to go.
Yeah.
And so I don't think there's a clear line to that. I think that's really there to be won right now. And Mason Fluharty and Braden Fisher can just shut the door on that and just be like, okay, these jobs are ours, and it's nothing there. But if Spencer Miles or Angel Bastardo, if they're just tremendous and just pumping, high velo and for strikes, maybe it triggers somebody's imagination and forces the Blues to try and get a little bit creative.
Yeah, but is your sense that there's actually 2 jobs there available?
I mean, it depends on how it plays out. I don't think it's 2 jobs. I think it's 1 job, but then let's see what happens this spring. Does it turn into more than that?
Shi, I know you got a busy day, so I appreciate you making the time. Thanks for doing this, buddy.
Yeah, you got it, JD. Take care, man.
You too, bud. Shi Davidi, senior reporter for Sportsnet. Okay, so just to wrap up that conversation, I totally understand every point Shi is making. Like, 1, things tend to sort themselves out. Yes, of course. 2, surplus is good. Of course. 3, who wouldn't want Max Scherzer back, especially under the premise that he's essentially under contract? Like, you'd have him on retainer. You don't need him, but he's working to get healthy, and when that time comes, he'll be ready. All of that is great. All of that is positive. I'm not trying to spin any of this as a negative or like trying to create a story out of nothing, but just to create a little bit of drama. Like, that's not what's happening here. But it's just that this is where my mind goes. When I saw the Eric Lauer quote and he talked about how that cost him in arbitration, you had to just have the quick realization that, hey, this is a dude who's making $4.5 million this season and who does not have a guarantee in terms of what the rest of his MLB career is going to look like. He left Major League Baseball because of performance issues. He's also, how old is Eric Lauer exactly? Because I'm pretty sure he's 31. He's almost 31. So this would represent kind of the best shot Eric Lauer has to be able to get a decent contract, right? And what's the path forward for that? It's to start. If he starts, he puts together a season like he did last year where he is a more than capable 5th starter. Someone who at one point of the year, what were we talking about with Lauer? It was like, man, where is this guy in terms of the dudes you trust? He's like in the top 3. When the Jays were talking 6-man rotation, most of us were pulling our hair out saying, why would you take this guy out of the 6-man rotation when he's pitching as well as anybody at the time? You don't think that he's feeling a measure of that? Of course he is. So it's great to have surplus and it's great to have added arms, and you absolutely should, and this should always be the scenario. Just the goalpost has moved a little bit for this guy from where he was at a year ago. A year ago, it was fine for him to be starting the year in AAA, and he wasn't even the 6th starter. He was the 7th starter because that's where he was at his career. But now he's proven enough, and he's got a track record of a good enough degree that he has to at least be thinking about what his future looks like, and that giving into all of the team's requests did cost him some money just now, that it's fresh in his mind. Then you've got the Barrios piece of it. You've gone over this a million times, but it's like, yeah, it's all fine at camp right now when the assumption is that he's going to make the rotation. He's going to start the season with the team. But what happens if you have to have an uncomfortable conversation? And right now, you would assume Cody Ponce is going to start the year in the starting rotation. Like it would be kind of shocking if they went out and got this guy. Everyone spoke about how he's become a starter now. Everyone was basically all unanimous across the board saying this guy is a very different player than the one who left, and also just the money that they gave him and the role that he was reportedly promised feels strong, but that was kind of what was said to me by multiple different people. So you would think, like, out of all the guys that would accept a role as a long man, it would be Cody Ponce, but yet he would be the least likely out of the three to start the season in that role. Then you throw in Max Scherzer stuff and these guys paying attention to different things and trying to figure out what their role would be. I think it's a fine question to wonder what it's going to look like if everybody's healthy, they sign Max Scherzer to a contract extension, and whether or not everyone's going to be okay with that role. Like, I'm sorry, but it is a little different when you're the Dodgers and you have that surplus and you're winning World Series and you've got a bunch of guys who are injury prone. That's not really the case with this group of players. Like, Barrios was hurt last year, but you can't consider him an injury prone player. Lauer was healthy. And there are question marks with some of these other guys, but outside of Shane Bieber, there's no one that you're coming into the year being like, man, I'm really worried about this arm. Like, it's all these big hypotheticals like, yeah, you savage the workload, blah, 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 blah. And yet, because of all those like little question marks about each guy, it makes it more important that you have that surplus. So yeah, you're kind of in an interesting position. Anyway, let's take a quick break. Subscribe to this podcast, leave 5 stars, reach out anytime at JD Bunkis, Twitter and Instagram. Raptors are back tonight against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Then they've got a game against the San Antonio Spurs. And good, because these are games that I actually want to watch. These last few games have not really been compelling. And I told Armin yesterday when we were standing here in the studio, like, I just don't have any interest whatsoever when it comes to the Raptors playing the G League teams that are getting trotted out by the tanking squads around the NBA. So Barnes back, Pirtle out, 2 games that matter. Some thoughts on Raptors apathy next.
The courtside legend is back for a limited time. The McDonald's Raptor Chicken Nacho Poutine. Made with 100% Canadian-raised seasoned chicken, nacho cheese sauce, and tortilla strips. This one is for the fans. Order on the McD's app. Available for a limited time.
Get ready, Ontario. The next Lotto Max jackpot is an estimated $65 million, plus an estimated 8 Max Millions. And now, until February 27th, Lotto Max Dream Draws is back, with the chance to win one of over 750 guaranteed weekly prizes, from $50 to $10,000. Buy your Lotto Max ticket in-store for your chance to win. Ontario only. Must be 18 plus. Offer excludes free play, self-serve terminals, online play, and is not valid with any other mode of purchase. Visit olg.ca/dreamdraws for more details.
Dial in your game this winter with Golf Town's state-of-the-art simulator bays. Powered by industry-leading Foresight sports technology. Enjoy tour-level precision the pros trust, or play a virtual round on a world-famous golf course for just $24.99 for a 55-minute session at any Golf Town location. Renting their simulators can help take your game to the next level, whether you're a beginner or seasoned golfer. Book your tee time in-store or online at golftown.com. Come in and play at Golf Town this winter.
Canadian workers and businesses built this country. Their strength and tenacity shaped the Canada we know today. As a worker or employer navigating these uncertain times, you're not alone. The Government of Canada is here to help with supports like training opportunities, financial support to prevent layoffs, job search tools, and flexible EI. Learn more about support for tariff-impacted workers and employers at canada.ca/tariff support. A message from the Government of Canada.
Right now at Pizzaville, get 2 classic panzerotti for $13.99. Each filled with tomato sauce and cheese, baked or fried, and come with a side of tomato sauce for dipping. Order at pizzaville.ca or from your cell at pound 3636.
The Infiniti QX50 is the fastest growing compact luxury SUV sold. At 268 horsepower, the QX50 is designed to turn heads and stay ahead of the moment. Switch up to the Infiniti QX50 Pure for $249. Lease semi-monthly at 0% for up to 39 months with $49.95 down and up to $3,000 bonus cash. Now is your chance to upgrade to luxury. Conditions apply. Available at participating Ontario retailers. Fastest growing compact luxury SUV sold based on Desrosiers segmentation comparing total sales for 2024 and 2025.
Why switch to a Leva Sleep Adjustable Bed? Because it's a better bed. Better than your regular bed. Better than your snoring partner bed. Better than your pillow wall bed. Definitely better than the couch. A Leva Sleep Adjustable Bed is better because you can adjust your side of the bed your way and their side of the bed to the anti-snore preset. Better your relationship when you better your bed with a Leva Sleep Adjustable Bed. See why it's better. Visit one of our 6 Leva Sleep showrooms or levasleep.com.
BetMGM, authorized gaming partner of the NBA, has your back all season long. From tip-off to the final buzzer, they're ready for every exciting moment and every highlight play that comes throughout basketball season. Download the BetMGM app. BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 19 years of age or older to wager. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you have any questions or concerns about your gambling or that of someone close to you, please contact Connects Ontario at 1-866-531-2600 to speak to an advisor free of charge. BetMGM operates pursuant to an operating agreement with iGaming Ontario.
The legendary Yeti, born to handle ice, snow, and the harshest conditions imaginable.
Hey, that's like a Subaru with all-wheel drive.
The mighty Yeti uses its impressive strength to navigate any terrain.
Like the X mode in a Subaru.
No one knows exactly what they do out there.
Usually snowboarding, sometimes skating if I find a pair that fits. Legendary winters await, so hurry into your local Subaru dealer for lease and finance rates as low as 0.5%. Conditions apply. See dealer for details. Subaru, uncommon comes standard.
By joining the skilled trades, you'll make a living while making places to live. With over 140 skilled trades to choose from, there's more opportunity than ever to create a stable career for today and tomorrow. Building stronger communities right here in the place we call home. That's how we protect Ontario. Join the skilled trades. Learn more at ontario.ca/skilled trades. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
Wait, before you move on to the next song, Sunwing's noticing a trend. Parents everywhere are searching for last-minute March break deals as their kids agonize over the horrors of a staycation. And so they should. Sunwing savings on actual March break vacations get you kids' pools, kids' clubs, the beach, buffets. Your cutoff is March 1st, so skip the staycation regret. Book with your local travel advisor or sunwing.ca.
Hey, what's for dinner? I don't know, pizza? Again? No.
Grabbed some bento sushi at the grocery store.
Woo, sushi!
For family sushi night, Bento has you covered. Look for Bento in a grocery store near you.
The Friends and Family event is on now at Shoppers Drug Mart. Open your PC Optimum app, get your coupon, and save 20% on almost anything. Exclusions apply.
Sportsnet 590, The Fan.
Before I talk about the Raps, I just want one last thing about looking at athletes for our political outrage. This happens with celebrities too. Like, have there been important athletes for political or social discourse? Absolutely. Like, not all these guys are Muhammad Ali and Bill Russell and Billie Jean King, okay? Like, we got to stop doing this of looking to celebrities and athletes who are not willingly entering political discourse to be the ones that are setting the tone for what our opinions and discussions should be as a society. Like, we got to stop. We got to stop projecting these onto people and just make a stand. Take a stand. Like, ugh. Stop it. Please. I'm begging you. Why wasn't it this? Like, this isn't who Auston Matthews wants to talk about clothes. That's it. Clothes, UFC, hockey. Like, I don't need him to be the face of resistance against Donald Trump. I'm sorry. I just don't. And I think it's so weird that we do this with celebrities. Like, it's such a weird parasocial relationship that we have with them where it's like we're forcing our political opinions, beliefs, and wants onto people that have shown absolutely zero interest in taking part. Anyways, the Raptors are back. Jakob Poeltl not playing tonight. Scotty Barnes is. You got two games that matter. They're Western Conference opponents. Yes, of course, you always want to see them against the East because that is a little bit more telling in terms of where they can stack up in the postseason. But this has now become the story of the Raptors' second half. What do you do in the games against teams that are going to be in the playoffs? How do your rotations look? How do your stars look in the fourth quarter? Can you actually protect leads? Are you going to learn how to win some of these basketball games? Because that point has been made over and over the course of this regular season. Hey, this is a young team that's learning how to win together. They haven't had all the same pieces in the lineup, and again, they're not going to have it tonight with Poeltl because he's not going to play, I would guess, in back-to-backs. Maybe they deem him a little bit more important, having to face Victor Wembanyama the following night. Maybe he doesn't even play in that game because the low manager. I don't know. Poeltl's back thing is super weird. We talked to Grange about it a few weeks ago, and he mentioned that this isn't something that has been an easy diagnosis for the team. But you can basically count on this from me in terms of the way that they will be covered for the rest of the regular season up until the playoffs, which is call me for the games that matter. Do not talk to me about any victory over Chicago Bulls, Milwaukee Bucks, Washington Wizards. That's done. That's done. How could you possibly care? That portion of the season did matter already. Like, and the record stuff still matters. Like, I want them to get those wins. But, like, they've proven it. They've proven that piece of it. They are better than the tanking teams. They are no longer a lottery team. The question now is, what are you ceiling-wise? And I really do think that given the timeline of these players, that question needs to be sorted coming off of this year. Like, going into next season, if this doesn't work out, if they continue to lose all these games to teams above 500, right? If their record ends up staying with, you finish a regular season with 2 wins, 3 wins against teams that were above you, and then you get bounced in a first-round playoff series, I don't view that as this incredible step forward. Is it a step forward? Of course it is. There's going to be positives. The Ingram and Barnes stuff that we've gone over all season long, the Murray Boyles piece is a huge, huge, huge win for this organization that it really does appear that guy is an absolute nail job at that pick, which at the time was viewed as largely disappointing based on how hard the Raptors tried to tank last year. But if you look at it through the lens of the tanking rules are going to change, maybe that ends up actually helping the Raptors a little bit. But the salary structure that these guys have, the conversations going into the trade deadline, which were, hey, it's going to be really difficult for this team to make moves where they really improve outside of really mortgaging the future, that they've got contracts on the book that are not palatable to a lot of teams around the NBA, that there's a lot of pressure now ramping up. That this is why I hated the word rebuild with this organization. It's like, it's not a rebuild. They built it. They built this team. This is a team that is difficult to drastically change at this point. And so while you figured out a couple of very important things in your 2 stars, elevating ceilings, showing proof of concept that they can play well together, Barnes taking another step forward in his career. I think Ingram taking a very important step forward in his career, not just from a health standpoint, but proving that he could play winning basketball. Like, we didn't know that about that guy. Sorry, we didn't. We didn't know what he was going to look like as a defender where they needed him to contribute on that end, night in, night out. We didn't know if he was going to be able to manage this workload. We didn't know if there was going to be more awkwardness with him and Barnes. And so far, that hasn't really been the case. So there are good things, but this isn't like, okay, well, you lost this year, you didn't show anything, and then we're going into next year like, hey, maybe they just trade RJ Barrett and bring all these guys back and everything should be another step forward. Like, there's only so much you can ask from Scotty Barnes in terms of entering his age 25 season and how much better you're going to get out of him. So I'm fascinated by these games. And in a weird way, like, yes, there's apathy for the games that don't matter, the games that are against those actual rebuilding, those actual tear-down teams. But from a regular season standpoint, the Raptors are actually one of the most curious teams down the stretch here in terms of actually evaluating the meaningful contests against meaningful opponents. Quick break, James Mirtle next.
The Courtside Legend is back for a limited time. The McDonald's Raptor Chicken Nacho Poutine. Made with 100% Canadian-raised seasoned chicken, nacho cheese sauce, and tortilla strips. This one is for the fans. Order on the McD's app. Available for a limited time.
Bet365 is paying out before the final whistle.
Check out Bet365's early payout for football. When you bet on a team to win and they take a 17-point lead, you get paid no matter the final score. And with an early payout, you could be on your way to a winning parlay.
Early payout. Just another reason why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 or older, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you or someone you know has concerns about gambling, visit connexontario.ca. T&Cs apply.
The legendary Yeti, born to handle ice, snow, and the harshest conditions imaginable.
Hey, that's like a Subaru with all-wheel drive.
The mighty Yeti uses its impressive strength to navigate any terrain.
Like the X mode in a Subaru.
No one knows exactly what they do out there.
Usually snowboarding, sometimes skating if I find a pair that fits. Legendary winters await, so hurry into your local Subaru dealer for lease and finance rates as low as 0.5%. Conditions apply. See dealer for details. Subaru, uncommon comes standard.
Great goal! Let's go to Dave at the bench.
Oh, what a shot, Gord. Last time we spoke, you had been really tired. Not anymore.
Yeah, snoring all night. Losing sleep ruins your game.
Problem snoring? Suffer from sleep apnea? Invest in yourself. Call Dr. Paulette Pillersdorf. She'll use her laser to help treat your snoring and oral appliance like a sports mouth guard for your sleep apnea. Your partner will thank you.
Thanks, Gord.
Book your appointment with Dr. Paulette Pillersdorf. Call 647-243-2006.
Okay, wait, before you move on to the next song, Sunwing's noticing a trend. Parents everywhere are searching for last-minute March break deals as their kids agonize over the horrors of a staycation. And so they should. Sunwing's savings on actual March break vacations get you kids' pools, kids' clubs, the beach, buffets. Your cutoff is March 1st, so skip the staycation regret. Book with your local travel advisor or sunwing.ca.
Minus 35. I'm happy for going out today. And
leave the winter blues behind when you give and get away at Canadian Blood Services. Escape to a donor center this winter and leave feeling a little lighter, brighter, and better. And when you book and attend a blood or plasma appointment, you have a chance to win round-trip tickets for two, courtesy of Air Canada Foundation. No donation required. Give and get away this winter. Book at blood.ca/getaway and experience what you get when you give. Conditions apply. See full draw rules for details.
Money's tight for a lot of Canadians. Life adds up fast. That's why keeping track of your money and managing it wisely helps you get the most out of every dollar. Whether you're juggling bills, keeping up with housing costs, or saving for what's ahead, we've got tools to help. Life's expensive, but you've got options. Get trusted tips and tools to make the most of your money at canada.ca/it-pays-to-know. A message from the Government of Canada.
Okay. First question. When does Desjardins Insurance suggest you switch to winter tires?
Below 7 degrees. Easy.
Nice. Next, what's a smart way to save money on your home insurance?
Switch to Desjardins Insurance and you could save up to $900 when you bundle home and auto. Easy.
Get insurance that's really big on care. Desjardins Insurance. Here for your home, auto, life, and business needs. Certain conditions apply.
A roll-up season report from Tim's. The forecast calls for prizes like VIP SiriusXM experiences, Cirque du Soleil VIP getaways, and Simon shopping sprees. So play on the cup and the app before March 22nd. Cups available for a limited time. Rules apply. Canada only. No purchase necessary. Visit the Tim's app for details.
Hockey talk is fun. Money talk wins. Combine them to get the Financial Power Play podcast. I'm Brett Cranston, and on the Financial Power Play podcast, I interview pro players, hockey parents, coaches, and performance experts about hockey life and the financial decisions that come with it. Quick episodes, real stories, practical takeaways. Listen and subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Just search the Financial Power Play Podcast with Brett Cranston.
Get ready, Ontario. The next Lotomax jackpot is an estimated $65 million, plus an estimated 8 Max Millions. And now, until February 27th, Lotomax Dream Draws is back with a chance to win one of over 750 guaranteed weekly prizes from $50 to $10,000. Buy your Lotomax ticket in-store for your chance to win. Ontario only. Must be 18 plus. Offer excludes free play, self-serve terminals, online play, and is not valid with any other mode of purchase. Visit olg.ca/dreamdraws for more details.
The Friends and Family event is on now at Shoppers Drug Mart. Open your PC Optimum app, get your coupon, and save 20% on almost anything. Exclusions apply.
CJCL Toronto.
Job for just one day. I wish it didn't have to be so bad. It might be inappropriate because you're the way your baggage dropped, oh yeah. I wish it didn't have to be so bad. But I play with fire to break the ice. And I play with the nuclear device.
So we're shifting back into Leafs mode. Something that is going, I thought most people were kind of dreading, given the way the team has played for the vast majority of this season and the excitement that was surrounding the Olympics. And now I actually view this as a bit of a welcome distraction. What I find kind of like most interesting coming out of this, outside of the Olympic fallout and what this means for the game moving forward and the NHL trade deadline, is just the way that people are going to perceive Auston Matthews off of this. Like, he gets a gold medal and he's the captain of the team. There's a lot of celebrating of him by American hockey media, who, as Sam correctly pointed out, were the ones criticizing him early in the tournament, who crushed him last year at the Four Nations when he didn't score a goal in the championship game, but have now pivoted to how important of a piece this is for his legacy. And while I would imagine there's a piece of this that is Canadian sour grapes, because how could it just not be? Like, it's not the same as if he was a Canadian player returning to the lineup and you're feeling just nothing but positive feelings about the victory. And this isn't Mats Sundin, right, with Team Sweden, where there isn't the same animosity between the two countries. And also, Mats had been a more universally beloved figure, I would say. He was not in a controversial part of his career at that point when he won. That when I've been talking to people about how they're feeling about Matthews, like, I've reached out to a bunch of, like, my closest Leaf friends, the ones that are the most invested in this team, and I keep asking, like, hey, does this change the way that you view him? And the universal response has been like, no, this doesn't really change anything with the Leafs. Like, it's good for him, it's good for his career, it's good for his legacy. But in terms of the way that I feel about him personally, is like, yeah, it's nothing has changed. James Mirtle of The Athletic, he joins me now. What's up, buddy? How we doing?
Hey, JD. How's it going?
I am doing well. Okay, first thing that I want to touch on with you is I was thinking about today how, you know, this story that the American players, a bunch of them might not play in their first game on Wednesday, back as the NHL returns. And the 3-on-3 format, and like the Sidney Crosby injury, and I think Rantanen got hurt. Who else got hurt? Who's the Swiss?
Well, McKinnon's banged up, right? I mean, Crosby's hurt. Morrissey.
The schedule is a nightmare. Like, if you look at the Leafs schedule for the last month and a half, it's like every night. Like, get ready to watch the Leafs every single night. Have you had any conversations with anybody just in terms of this was a difficult thing for the players to get back in the CBA negotiations. They really wanted this thing. And yet it's been a huge boon in terms of interest south of the border, right? Like, how many people are interested in the American hockey program versus where we were at even a couple of years ago? And so from a marketing standpoint, I would have to think outside of all the politicization of the players and the controversy involving the Trump phone call and Kash Patel and all this other stuff. What do you think the overall read is from just like Bettman's chair in terms of the success of this event?
I mean, to be honest, I haven't talked to anyone in the league office about that, but this is what they always dreamed of, right? When they went to the Olympics.
So
this
you
is what
think they're thrilled?
They had stars in their eyes when they went to Nagano in 1998 because they were coming off the World Cup win for the Americans, right? And they thought, I mean, what is this going to do for the reason we're willing to make all of these concessions, shut our league down, is potentially there's going to be an American win. It's going to be the next miracle on ice, and that's going to accelerate interest in our league and growth of the sport to another level in the U.S. And that didn't happen. The U.S. didn't win. They won 2 silvers in the 5 NHL Olympics. They pulled back and didn't go to those Olympics that were over in Asia, as we all know, those 2 Olympics. And now that they've got this, it's going to be very interesting to see. I mean, they're committed, right? They're committed to France for sure for 2030 for the Olympics. They're committed to bringing the World Cup back and playing that in every 2 years, alternating when it's not an Olympic year. And it's going to be interesting, as you said, fitting this into the schedule. But I think that the view from the league office in terms of what you're talking about, the schedule being condensed and everything crammed together and the players not being able to celebrate their gold medal win, I'm sure the league is saying, hey, this is what you guys wanted.
Yeah.
You wanted this event crammed in the middle of your schedule. The owners in general hate it. They hate shutting it down. A lot of the best gate months for the NHL in the US, in a lot of, especially the southern markets that have football going on, the best gate months are February and March and April. And this is when the hockey interest really picks up. If you look at attendance in a place like Nashville, it goes like this when you get into, March. So a lot of the owners don't like shutting the league down. But they were pushed in the CBA negotiations that this is one of the big things that the players wanted. So I'm sure they're saying, hey, you're hurt, you're banged up, the schedule's crazy. We know that we didn't want it for that reason, but this is what you wanted.
No, the players, I think, are across the board thrilled that this ended up happening. Like even the guys, that got injured, like there was the one quote from, I believe it was McDavid ahead of the gold medal game where he said, this is what we've been missing, right? And he's right. But having best on best international hockey is crucial to the interest level in the sport. Like that has played out to be an absolute bona fide fact. But as the NHL gears up for that World Cup in 28 and wants to be able to control their own event around their own schedules and try to build the interest around that tournament, I did wonder how they're feeling about this now, because there's a whole bunch of different things that are happening now, right? Is one, they have a commissioner who in the past has been very stubborn. Like the issues that he believes are issues or the ones that he doesn't believe are issues, like those don't really seem to change. Year over year, he's like pretty consistent. No matter how many NHL fans care or hate this playoff format, he's like every year, it's the greatest thing. We got the rivalries. Like this is so awesome, blah, 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 blah. Go on down the line. You can find a multitude of different examples here. But I'm looking at the schedule and I'm thinking, man, there's going to be 84 games next year. Like we're adding games to the slate. And then there's these other kind of side question, which is, the NBA is going through this real issue right now in their regular seasons with load management, right? There's this college kid named Darren Peterson. He is playing for Kansas right now. He's projected to be the first overall pick in the draft. He's doing load management in college basketball, James. Like that's where we've gotten to with the NBA and professional basketball players. I can't help but think that tanking is going to be a big conversation down the stretch with the NHL because everybody's going to be vying to get into these bottom 3 picks. I think there's been a lot of conversation about the product being a little flat this year in the NHL, a little bit of schedule apathy with the regular season. So you combine those things of tanking, potential for load management, 84-game season, some of the injuries that pop up, the gate issues that you're talking about. I know they love the added eyeballs, but I would, and I mean this sincerely, I think Heated Rivalry did more for new casual fan interest in the NHL. I think the numbers bear that out in terms of social media followings and Instagram posts and everything in terms of the NHL as a larger league than the Olympics did. And if they are going to have this other tournament that they can control, I do wonder if it's like we're only going to get one more Olympics.
Well, I think 2034 might be in the U.S., right? So
Okay.
then that would be a no-brainer.
No-brainer
I
to
think
do
they're
that.
I think they're looking at going back to Salt Lake. I believe.
Okay, so but do
You know,
you do you believe that it's like, hey, this is a certainty now that we're getting this cycle moving forward? That's kind of what I'm asking. Is like, if you're the league and you're looking at this as this unbelievable success, then the idea would be like we're never going back to the dark ages where we didn't have Olympic hockey.
I don't know. I don't think they're committed to it
That's what I'm saying.
100% beyond 2030. No, I mean, because for all the reasons I stated, they don't love shutting down their league and not having the control over what's going on and not having the control over the schedule, not having access to a lot of the rights and everything that happens over there. And it's a constant negotiation and sparring that happens between the NHL and the IIHF and the IOC. And it hasn't been a great relationship in the past. And that's part of why they weren't there the last two Olympics. But if it's going to be on home soil, if the U.S. is going to continue to get better and better and challenge Canada and be a, really legit gold medal favorite, the NHL is going to want to be there for them to potentially win another gold medal on home soil. So that's the only reason why I think that it could be two more Olympics, but they're kind of taking this as they go. And I think if it was up to the NHL, their event, the World Cup, they'd be able to build it up, make it consistent, and then that takes over as best on best. And then they don't have to deal with the IOC. They get the revenue from the World Cup. They'd be much happier to see that become the number one best on best in the sport.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of having it where you would only have best on best every 4 years. Like, that's the beauty of having both, is that you're getting these 2-year cycles, right? Where it's like, okay, cool, you're going to get one and then the other, and they're going to start to share an import level. But this was kind of the point that I was trying to make to McKee yesterday, and I don't know if it came off very clear on the show, is that the pitfall of having the overtime be 3-on-3 is that this time around, you're like, yeah, whatever. It's, hey, credit to the Americans, they win 3-on-3, whatever. But if you end up having another tournament where it is all best on best, and you do have it for a couple of different cycles where people are getting as excited for that as the Olympics, the branding starts to get strong around it. You've removed some of the gimmicks that you tried in the, 2016 World Cup? Yeah, right? That's when they did the North America one?
Yeah, the one that was here, yeah.
Yeah, if you remove some of those gimmicky teams and it becomes a real bona fide tournament with the best 8 teams, so like if you remove some of the round-robin games against the Frances of the world or the teams that just end up getting dummied in this tournament that become kind of switch-off games, every game matters. But then you also have finals that everyone's agreed upon to be 5-on-5. And they feel like you've removed all of the gimmicks from these tournaments. I do think there's a pathway forward for the World Cup to become the premier event ahead of the Olympics over the course of the next decade.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's the one that's going to be guaranteed to be played. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we're going to get that every 4 years, I guess, going forward. And then we're going to get the Olympics for at least for 2030. So there's going to be international play here on this cycle for another 3 cycles, every 2 years. So, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves to say, well, they pull back from the Olympics, but certainly the NHL would rather see their event be the one that succeeds and becomes prominent. And the time zone issue was huge too. I mean, I saw that the ratings came in for the gold medal game, and it was, I think in Canada, it was 8-something million. That's lower than Vancouver, and that's lower than it's been in the past. And a big reason why is on the West Coast, it was 5 a.m. when the game started. So, the NHL is going to be able to put it right in prime time and really build up the event. And the success of the Four Nations too, which they weren't sure how big of a success that was going to be, that can be a huge building block for them as well. And do you remember the overtime in Four Nations? Was that 3-on-3? I don't remember what. I mean, we should remember because they did 5-on-5 in overtime. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure that that's going to be talked about. I would be shocked if it's 3-on-3 for a gold medal game or whatever, a trophy winning game for the World Cup.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, again, you have to, if you want to legitimize the World Cup and you want it to make it the number one tournament, you have to make sure that you're making it feel as big as possible. And that includes no more, don't make the field too deep and don't have 3-on-3 overtime. Don't have penalties. Make sure that this is as legitimate of a tournament as possible. Also, you're the second guest today that's telling me I'm getting way ahead of myself. It's like, yeah, that's what I do. All right, I'm having conversations. These are the things I'm thinking about. I'm sorry that I think about these things in the future.
Is there going to be an Olympics in 2034? I mean, JD, I don't even know.
I think it's.
Are we going to be around in 2034? You and I and the old folks.
Me, probably not.
2034 Olympics.
No, I mean more so from the standpoint of everyone thinking, hey, this is such a success. This is such a success. The regret of not having, to me, one of the big black eyes for the NHL is that they didn't have players go in 2018 and 2022. Like, what a misstep it was to not be able to have these games. Everybody misses them so much. They've meant so much to so many different people. And so you would think, like, okay, well, the lesson learned from this cycle is never again. And yet, I don't really get the sense that that's the case from the NHL. That they would be like, ultimately, if given our druthers, we have our own tournament that we control every 2 years. And eventually we can have something where we no longer need the Olympics. We no longer need that relationship with the IOC in order to create these tournaments and to create this type of interest around hockey. Anyway, do you have a lasting thought of the Olympics? I just have one more thing on this before we move into Leafs. But yeah, I just wanted to open the floor to you if like there was something that you keep reflecting on.
I think it's interesting, the conversation around Canada not winning and this idea that they dominated the U.S. in that game. Therefore, there's not a problem with anything that happened for Canada at the Olympics. I find that kind of weird because, I mean, they almost lost to the Czechs in the quarters. They almost lost to the Finns in the semifinal. And it's kind of like everyone's been men in black zapped that they forget those games. Like, look how good they looked in the second and third period against the U.S. I mean, they almost lost all 3 games. They almost went to 3-3 overtime in all 3 games. I think there should be like more reflection about what didn't go well for Canada and ways that they can be better. I know that they looked dominant in that game, but I still think that there's ways that you can improve. And when you don't have success, or when you almost don't have success, like if they would have lost that game against the Czechs, imagine what the conversations would be like in the aftermath. And they almost did lose that game. So I just think that there should be like a little bit more sober reflection about the roster selection, about the preparation for the Olympics. Were they ready for 3-on-3 to be such a big part of what was happening? Did they make the right choices in not having Bedard there? Were they prepared for the fact that Josh Morrissey, potentially their second best defenseman, going down? Did they have a replacement there? And did they rely too much on, relationships that the GM had with his players, putting them on the team and things like that? And I think those are all conversations they should have going into the next best and best event.
I think that there's definitely an element that has the reflection on the roster choices, right? Like, hey, who were the best guys that should have been there? There was definitely like almost everyone that I spoke to mentioned what a mistake it was not bringing Schaefer over, say, Parayko. And so when you mention those relationships, it's like that's kind of one where it's easier to at least point to. But what I think is actually the more interesting point in all of this is like the diminishing discussion around what the future is around Canada because they were so good in that game. Because it wasn't like, hey, the Americans did not look level-footed with Canada. And the big fear coming into this tournament was that, hey, if it wasn't going to be our game anymore, was that the Americans were going to be able to match us. Like, I know how I felt during the first shift of that game, which was the United States is all over Canada. Canada's got their best guys out there. They score first, and you're starting to think, like, oh, my God. Like, maybe.
Well, JD, the U.S. matched them in goal. I mean, that's the other thing, too. Is like
that's where I'm going. I'm
like that's part of winning these tournaments is having 100%. The best goaltender. And there's no, I mean, you and I were texting about this yesterday. Like, Canada doesn't have a young goalie coming in the NHL. Like, there's hardly any young Canadian goalies in the league, and it goes down every year. Canada's losing a starter in the NHL every season. Like, that's how dramatic the fall off has been, because teams are drafting Americans and Europeans, and Russians have gotten very good in net, and Canada just doesn't have the next one coming. And it's such a big piece. The reason why the European countries got good in goal is the small nations looked at it and said, this is our great equalizer. You know, that's when the Finns started pouring all of their resources and coaching into goaltending, because they thought this is going to help us win international events. Canada's kind of done the opposite. I mean, they've really dropped the ball in terms of developing goalies. So for me, having written about this for the last 12, 13 years and spending time in Europe and talking to people in goaltending circles for a long time, this has been coming, that the Canada would lose a tournament like this, where I mean, it happened against Hasek, but that felt like kind of a one-off, and it was a long time ago.
Yeah, he was like a one-of-one special player.
Yeah, Hellebuck's not a fluke. You know, Hellebuck won the Hart Trophy last year. And if you look at the Vezina Trophy winners, I think Canada has won in the last decade, and it's Marc-Andre Fleury who's retired. Canada doesn't have another great goalie coming, and I think that that's a huge concern, because how big a percentage is goaltending of winning one of these tournaments? I think it's huge. It's probably like 40% of the tournament.
What's the major cliche with the Stanley Cup playoffs?
Yeah, it's goaltending. Yeah. And this isn't to say Binnington was terrible. Binnington was fine. He had a .917 save percentage in the tournament. He's not the reason they lost the gold medal game. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is Canada doesn't have a Hellebuck, and they don't have an Ottinger, and they don't have a Vasilevsky, and they don't have a guy that can match the very, very I don't think anyone was coming into that tournament thinking Binnington was going to be able to post a 955 save percentage, which is what Hellebuck did. And a lot of times the teams that win those tournaments have a goalie that can do that.
Well, you sent me this stat yesterday, and I've been thinking about it all morning, all last night. 2 Canadians, 27 and under, have played how many games this season in the NHL?
More than 10 as a goalie. Yeah. And no one would be able to name who the 2 are either. It's not like there's like a young Carey Price out there that's dumb. And then you look at, and there are a lot of young goalies in the NHL playing games and doing well. You know, you look at like Dustin Wolf for the US or the Fowler kid playing in Montreal is American. There's a ton of great American and Russian and European goalies coming. And Canada, to me, I mean, I'm no expert of like the junior guys. I can't tell you who the best 17-year-old goalie is, but I can tell you who at the pro level and what's happening at the draft. There's fewer Canadian goalies being drafted every year too. It keeps going down because NHL teams are trying to win. They're not trying to pick who's in their backyard anymore. And more than 50% of the goalies in the NHL are European. And the Americans now have more goalies in the NHL than Canadians for the first time ever this season. And I think it's a trend that we should be talking about more, even though Binnington was fine, you know, but just because Binnington's fine in a gold medal game, doesn't mean we shouldn't have this conversation because I think it's going to be a factor internationally going forward.
No, I think it's actually even a bigger conversation because what you did was you got fine goaltending, but you can't project that moving forward to the next Olympic cycle. Like you have no idea what 4 years is going to bring you in net for Canada. And you're right. It is such a great equalizer that you can point to all these first overall picks that Canada's going to be able to bring to these tournaments. But ultimately, if these games, which they did, like think about even the last time they beat the Americans in Sochi, right? It was a 1-0 game. Like Carey Price got a shutout. And the Four Nations tournament, it ends up being an overtime game. Like it's very close, and Binnington had to be spectacular in that contest. So yeah, the goaltending part of this really matters to me. I think that's, to me, it's twofold in terms of the future of the game conversation. One is the biggest one by far is what you're mentioning with, hey, we are not developing goalies the same way. 2 Canadians, 27 and under, playing 10 or more games this season is a jarring statistic. The other one for me, though, is I keep seeing people do this post of like, Canada's future is still so bright. We still make the elite player. Like project out the next bunch of first overall picks. And it's like, Gavin McKenna, and you know what I mean? Like DuPont, go on down the line of, hey, these are the guys that are going to go first overall. We're going to have just completely stacked top-tier talent. And I'm like, yes, that still appears to be the case over the course of what should be the next, I would say, 2 cycles at the Olympics. Macklin Celebrini, obviously, out like the story of the tournament for Team Canada. But the diversity of play question is going to be interesting moving forward as well. Because this roster, you can say it wasn't your cup of tea. You could have said, I would have rather had Bedard than, like, let's say Sam Bennett. But for me, it's like they had a line in Marchand, Wilson, and Bennett that actually did have an identity outside of the top line, and they were kind of the only guys that worked in that game. And Canada has made mistakes in the past, right? Like 2006, when they brought Chris Draper instead of a young Sidney Crosby, where they leaned way too much into that identity of like, we're going to be the rough and tumble group. We're going to be the checking forward line group. But if you're trying to think about, hey, what was so quality about some of the Canadian identity in these games and what was so exciting was like, we were still the team that was hitting. We were still the team that was getting, you know, pucks in deep and winning board battles and creating plays off the cycle and being able to like generate shift after shift in that period against the Czechs, the second period, or like the whole game against Finland, or even feeling like that was part of the difference with the Americans. And when I look forward at the future, and I think about some of these World Junior tournaments in terms of like the flattening registration or the flattening play between all the countries, I do wonder about net, but I do also wonder about what does the next crop look like when it comes to that diversity of play throughout your lineup? Because I don't think that it behooves you just to be like the team that has as much just pure end talent as possible. Like, look, the Americans didn't do it, right? They left off 2 of their best goal scorers in favor of some other guys that ended up having big games for the States.
It's really interesting if you look at the projected roster for Canada for 2030 and who's going to be there, and it's going to be a huge turnover from this event.
Yep.
You know, this was an older team. Canada sent an older team. That also wasn't talked about very much. Average age 30 years old of this Canadian team.
Yep.
And by my count, depending on what roster you have, by my count, I think they might have 9 or 10 returning players, depending on if you think Sidney Crosby is going to be back there.
I don't.
So that's a huge percentage of the roster that's going to be different. And where is that going to come from? And who are those players going to be? And is it going to be, I mean, obviously Schaefer's going to be there and Bedard's going to be there, but who else is on the roster? Is it Wyatt Johnston or is it, it looks like, I saw one roster projection. It had Cale Makar playing on the top D pairing with Matthew Schaefer. And it's like, well, that seems a lot of, we can all say we didn't want Parayko there, but you also don't want to have a blue line that's just Matthew Schaefer's, and for obvious reasons, especially against an American team that continues to develop the bruisers. But you look at that roster projection, and from what I saw, you're right. There's not a lot of the grit. There's not a lot of the size, physicality on that Canadian roster. The only counter I would have to you pointing that out is, if we were projecting this Olympic team 5-6 years ago, no one would have had Tom Wilson on it, right? Because he was a third, fourth line guy, and he didn't score 40 points in the NHL till he was 28 years old. Point. So, some of those guys develop later, and I think the hope for Canada has to be that those kind of players. I mean, Marchand also wasn't a high pick. I think it was a second round pick. So they're going to need to develop that probably over the course of their NHL career. But it is interesting when you project it out how different the roster is going to be and how young and skilled, and the question of whether or not that's good or not for Canada.
Yeah, how young and skilled they're going to be, but also, who will they have in net in 4 years? Like, that is a complete mystery. Like,
is it like a 33-year-old Mackenzie Blackwood? Or, I mean, I don't know who. Jet Greaves is one of the young goalies, Canadian goalies in the NHL. He's played pretty well for Columbus. I know he's not a big name, but it's going to be very interesting who's there.
Yeah. And like Logan Thompson is 28. So you would assume like a 32-year-old guy in that position, if he continues to track this way, would be maybe the front runner to be the starter at that point. But yeah, like it's an uncomfortable thing to think about. All right. Leaf stuff. Is the assumption now that, like, let's actually put it this way. Would you be surprised if Matthews plays Wednesday?
This is a developing one because I keep hearing different things this morning. I woke up this morning to messages about don't know if he's going to play. The Leafs obviously want him to play. So, and he's the captain of the team, and they need the points if they're going to make a playoff push. So I actually think he's going to play at this point. But I don't know. This one's, I don't have a definitive answer on that right now. It sounds like the NHL is saying this is like a team decision, and the teams can make the decision whether the players play or not. And it sounds like the PA is involved. And so it's more complicated than just a question of Matthews and the Leafs. But I just think with where the Leafs are, if the Leafs had a playoff spot locked up, I don't think there's any way he would play that game. But with where they're at and all the questions around the team and how important it is to the front office that they try and make the playoffs, I think he's going to play.
Ahead of the deadline, this is unquestionably their most difficult game. It's against Tampa Bay Lightning, right? Like, you think that it's the Sens or the Panthers or the Flyers? Like, I don't.
I mean, Tampa, I think, had the most players at the Olympics, right? I think they had 10. So, I mean, they're going to be facing, they're going to have some tired players there too, right?
So exactly right. So I actually think there's a ton of pressure on Matthews to play in this game, because part of me looked at it and went, well, it's a back-to-back that they're coming back from. And normally in this situation, you would go, all right, like, guys don't step back out on the ice because they're worn down from playing all the way into a gold medal game. And you would be able to look at this and say, well, it's back-to-back. Where the Leafs are in the standings, Auston Matthews facing a team that has a lot of other Olympians on it that you figure will be playing in this game. Like, I don't know what Tampa's roster is as of today. The stakes towards the playoffs and the need for Matthews in this lineup, and also the idea that, yeah, like, for a lot of people anyways, this is a less one for me, but the idea that in some way him going to the White House would be impacting his ability to play in this game. I think if he doesn't do it and they lose, it's going to be a massive conversation the following day.
Yeah, and I think he's going to play.
Yeah,
so
I would guess that too.
I believe
I just think the optics are too difficult if he doesn't.
Yeah, and I don't know what version of Auston Matthews you're going to get. I mean, I think it's, and I don't know how many minutes he's going to play. I believe that, if I recall correctly, Matt Sundin came back and played after he won the gold medal with Sweden in 2006. And that was when they were trying to make the playoffs as well, right? That was probably a similar situation. I'm trying to remember where the standings would have been. I mean, they ultimately ended up missing, but I think that they were trying to get in 2006. Sundin came back, and I don't think he played that much. I think his minutes were limited just because of the travel and everything. But what happened was when Sweden won, they made those games were also in Italy. They made an impromptu trip to Stockholm, partied their butts off for a couple of days, and a bunch of the veteran Swedish players didn't play for their NHL teams when they came back. So there is a precedent for this happening. It'll be interesting to see which teams allow their players to sit. Like maybe Tampa says, you know what, Jake Gensel, you don't have to play in that game against the Leafs because Tampa's obviously in such a great position. But all eyes are going to be on, I think there's 12 American players that are supposed to play tomorrow. We'll see how many of them actually suit up.
I think the only way that you could message this, but people won't even care, is from the Leafs standpoint is, hey, Auston has had a bunch of injuries over the last season. He's coming off of a tournament, a highly intense game that went into overtime. It's been a lot of travel. We're playing on a back-to-back. That you're almost saying that this is a load management situation, that the team took the decision out of his hands. The one messaging you cannot have is like any reporting that it was Matthews' decision and he was leaning towards not playing and that he was burnt out or all this stuff. It's the team being like, we're being overly cautious. We want Matthews for the stretch run. We didn't think it was in his best interest to be playing in this game from a health standpoint because of the back-to-back. That's it.
My understanding as of right now is the Leafs want him to play. So that hasn't happened.
Yeah. So there you go. So that's already done. That's already done. Last thing on him in this before I get into it's a week from the deadline, and I'll have you on next week, and things will probably take a little bit more shape, and I'm not even sure how much has changed since the last time we spoke. But did you find it at all interesting the way that Matthews' teammates for the Olympic team were talking about the way he's spoken about?
They were also
in
getting
this
asked.
market.
They're getting asked about it too, right? Like, I mean, maybe not directly, but they're getting asked about, what is, I think the Hughes brothers, I believe, were up at the podium with Matthews right after the game. And the questions to Matthews are things along the lines of how does this change, your legacy and the way people look at you and things like that. And then the Hughes interject and say, hey, like, this doesn't have anything to do with Toronto. This is, he's a champion. So, I mean, he's a very popular player in that dressing room and around the league. He's, and so they're kind of just like trying to defend one of their own. And I heard you and Sammy, and it's kind of like, the American media was taking shots at Matthews earlier in the tournament. And then now they win and there's this love-in, and then Toronto is responsible. I mean, I feel like Toronto's largely been pretty defensive of Auston Matthews. And I've been surprised how many fans, were happy that he won, given that their team lost to the U.S. And for some people, it feels like in Toronto that it was a silver lining that Auston Matthews was able to win something and
it's the only silver lining.
And experience the joy that he did there, and just kind of the relief for him. I think it's been, you and I talked about this, I think last show. It's been a really, really difficult 18 months or 2 years for Auston Matthews, playing through the injuries. He doesn't like talking about it. He doesn't like it being out there, but it's been pretty miserable for him. And I think what you just saw was a lot of relief that you enjoy. You finally win something. And he carries that burden of the Leafs' non-success in the playoffs around with him all the time. And, a lot of it silently, and a lot of it it just really weighs on him. The same way it's weighing on McDavid, right? But with McDavid, at least you can say, like, we'll look at the success he's had in the playoffs, even if his team hasn't gotten it done in the final game. They've been to Game 7 twice in the Stanley Cup final, and the Leafs haven't. So I think for Auston Matthews, and I think that's what weighed on Mitch Marner, and I think it was a big reason for him leaving. It wasn't just the way that the fans were acting. It was just like, it's hard to put a decade in a place and not have success and have everyone talk about you like you're a failure all the time, especially when, your DNA has to be a highly competitive, successful athlete. It's difficult. So, I wonder, there's obviously going to be an exhaustion factor and a rest factor, but I wonder if Matthews comes back from this energized just from finally getting a win under his belt.
Like I said, it's the only silver lining that people have. And you have to give Matthews credit for getting it done. And the difference now with him and McDavid is like, hey, McDavid's going to, if they don't win a cup this year, Edmonton, he's turning 30 years old with no Stanley Cups and no gold medals. Like, that's a pretty daunting proposition for that guy in particular. For Matthews, it's part of the reason why I think he needs to play on Wednesday night is you've got to be able to keep this story a positive in Toronto. Like, that is a silver lining thing. Nobody's going to be upset at Matthews because he won. It's not going to change anybody's opinion about the guy. Like, I was doing some hot takey stuff. Like, how are you going to feel if he scores the game-winning goal the way that McDavid did, watching him play for the Leafs down the stretch? If that ends up being the case, it ends up being something that I think you can only point to outside of the devastation of Canada losing as the nothing but a positive for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But if it results in even one game where he decides not to play, I think that is going to sour some people on him. And if I'm him, from an optic standpoint, I just want to keep the positive momentum rolling. I want to be on the team or on the ice with my team. The reason why I just think the teammate stuff is a little bit more interesting is that we do have the context of Mitch Marner. And you know as well as I do, because people have said it publicly, Marner, when he made his decision, was largely centered around when?
Well, I mean, people say the Olympics. I think he made the decision way before that, or the Four Nations. I mean, I think he made that decision way before that.
I think so too. I think that he was at least like strongly leaning towards leaving before the Four Nations tournament. But one of the prevailing narratives coming out of that thing was he bonded with Stone. He spoke to a lot of the different players. He had other guys that were in his ear about what his future was going to be in the league, who he was as a player, and that ultimately that the die was cast coming out of that tournament. And so I think that this is a very different situation with Auston Matthews. Like, I don't think that there's the same, first of all, the contract isn't the same, but also the relationship between him and the market is not the same. He's the captain of this team, the face of this team. He's more unanimous, or he's more universally liked by the fan base. He's never had to deal with those same contractual issues that Marner had. Like, this is not an apples to apples comparison, but I think that it's noteworthy. Like, I think it's noteworthy that his teammates spoke so openly about Toronto, that Mark Stone did the same thing when Mitch Marner scored his game-winning goal, that it does become a prevailing narrative around the league, and that he is so popular and so beloved by so many teammates, and that's what happens at these things. Like, this is the NBA All-Star Game. That's what would go down. NBA All-Star Game happens, and you wonder which stars are going to be talking to who. American basketball players go to their Olympics. You wonder which stars are going to be talking to who about making super teams. That's how we got the Miami Heat. I just don't think it's a zero in terms of discussing what an event like this, what Auston Matthews doing, or Auston Matthews being around his teammates like this for 2 cycles, winning something with them, and then having them speak on the way that he's looked at league-wide, specifically in his market, and saying that this doesn't have the potential for anything to matter a year from now. That's all.
I just think that the deciding factor for Matthews is going to be, are the Leafs competitive?
Totally.
Can they win? Like, that's what's going to matter to him. It's all the perception of what it's like in Toronto, and the Kachucks not wanting to play here, and the stuff that people are, Marchand saying the things he says about Toronto, and the big bad media, which you and I know is overblown and not true. I at the end of the day, for Matthews, it's going to be, where is this roster at? Where's the organization at? Where's ownership at? Who's the GM? Who's the coach? Are we one of the best 7 or 8 teams in the league? And do I have a chance to win a Stanley Cup here? And that's the work that the Leafs need to put in. And I don't know that the Olympics really has any kind of an impact on that. So, I know there were reports before the Olympics about him being committed to the team, and that's accurate. But how long does that last if the Leafs can't find success? I think this is such a huge stretch for the, if they're going to sell and miss the playoffs, which it looks like is what's going to happen, what does the offseason look like, and how does that impact Auston Matthews' future with the Leafs? It's going to be a huge story the next 6 months.
Yeah, it's a massive week. And last time we spoke, you had mentioned how you did think that the record was going to have some material impact on what this team did at the deadline. Like, if they rip off a couple of wins here, I think they have 4 games left before the deadline now? 4.
They have 6.
6?
They have. Yes, because the deadline is next Friday.
Right.
And they have 3 this week and 3 next week.
6 games between now and next Friday is insane. That's so many games.
Two sets of back-to-backs, a bunch of travel. It's madness.
Yeah, but they also do have some cupcakes.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they go, I think it's Philly, New Jersey, Rangers, and all 3 of those teams are struggling. So
and you have
they
to
could
throw
roll
Florida
through there. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, Ottawa, you don't know what you're going to get from Ottawa. So there's a world where they could win 4 or 5 of these games. And I do think it changes what they do at the deadline. So it's the Leafs. What I was told, asking around, because I knew we were going to talk about this, is they're not in full blown sell mode yet. They're not throwing in the towel on the season. So I really think that these last 6 games are going to be huge. And that if there is a sell off of Bobby McMahon and Scott Lawton and the obvious UFAs, it might not happen till the last day.
Do you think it's a lock Bobby McMahon is traded?
No, I mean, there's probably a world where they could still get an extension done. I mean, I don't think it's. I think it has to be one or the other, though. They can't walk him to free agency. So, and if they can't get a contract done and the asking price is unreasonable, I think you have to trade him. So he's the most likely one to go.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it still feels.
But I can see.
Sorry,
I can see a world where the trade deadline that's the only big move they make is trading him away.
Right now, from me, that's how it feels. Like looking at the schedule, what the record is, the pressure with Matthews stuff, because you're right. The ultimate most important thing is what does the team look like going into next year? Because that's the annoying piece of trying to make a playoff run is not that I don't think that they can get in the playoffs. I do. I think that they could find a way in. Like I've gone over the Boston part of this over and over. I think that Florida is going to go into a cell and that they're going to shut guys down and that they're not going to be a relevant piece of this playoff picture and that ultimately the Leafs could end up being what is really in a 2-3 team race for the bottom spot. And maybe they're the most talented team out of the group. It's that if they get into the postseason, this team is not it. And I do not think that they are built in any shape or form for a deep playoff run. And if you walk UFAs to the market, you're just going to weaken your position going into next offseason. Like you need to be able to get some trade assets back so that you can try and make the team better the following season. And the feeling I'm getting right now is they're going to straddle the line. Like maybe it's a Bobby McMahon that gets moved. I still think that it's more likely than not that he gets traded because the contract demand will be so big. But that outside of him, I honestly would feel a little surprised at this point if there ends up being another major move. Just based on the schedule, where they're at, the trying to win, trying to get into a playoff spot. That's how it feels.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they feel caught because they don't want to give up on the season. And what they should do, and again, you and I've talked about this. You listen to our last show. Like what they should do is go all in on next season,
totally,
and make every move right now to be a contender next year because that's what's going to matter. That's what's going to matter in terms of attracting free agents to Toronto, to keeping the guys they've got like Matthews and Nylander, keeping them happy and wanting to be here. And the realistic hope of trying to win this year is so slim with the season that they've had, with the injuries that they've had, with the blue line that they've got. I mean, full credit to Chris Tanev for trying to make a comeback, but it sounds like a long shot. And even if he can play, you can't count on him being healthy through a playoff run. So, it just seems like they're going for such a moonshot here to try and get into the playoffs and make something happen. But with what's happened with ownership and not having job security and management, can you blame them? I mean, it's human nature that you're trying to save your own skin in a situation like this.
James, we'll talk to you again when we have a clearer picture after a few more games next week. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, JD.
See you, pal. James Mirtle of The Athletic. I can't be more clear in this position. I think that this is always one of the biggest mistakes that teams try and do, which is ride the fence, do the 2 timeline thing. Oh, let's try to get in now, but also let's maybe sell a little piece and weaken the roster. Like, nah, just pick a lane, baby, pick a lane. All right, quick break, what we missed.
We are your home of the Toronto Raptors. Catch the action on Sportsnet 590 The Fan, streaming on the Sportsnet app and at sportsnet.ca/590.
The courtside legend is back for a limited time. The McDonald's Raptor Chicken Nacho Poutine. Made with 100% Canadian-raised seasoned chicken, nacho cheese sauce, and tortilla strips. This one is for the fans. Order on the McD's app. Available for a limited time.
Relive the revolutionary music of the Fab Four at the Music of the Beatles with your Toronto Symphony Orchestra on March 4th and 5th at Roy Thompson Hall. Hear Ticket to Ride, Penny Lane, and more. Book now at tso.ca.
Get ready, Ontario. The next Lotomax jackpot is an estimated $65 million, plus an estimated 8 max millions. And now, until February 27th, Lotomax Dream Draws is back with a chance to win one of over 750 guaranteed weekly prizes from $50 to $10,000. Buy your Lotomax ticket in store for your chance to win. Ontario only. Must be 18 plus. Offer excludes free play, self-serve terminals, online play, and is not valid with any other mode of purchase. Visit olg.ca/dreamdraws for more details.
Jack, you'll never believe it.
You got another get-rich-quick book.
Busy Bee Tools is having another flash sale, online and in store.
And you need my truck, because everyone you know will also be there loading up on table saws, band saws, and over 2,000 plus items that are going to be 10% off.
Yes! It starts this Monday till Wednesday, 50 hours. Oh, promo code is FLASH10. Don't tell anyone.
You just did.
Excludes President Specials, already discounted items, gift cards, and select brands.
Great goal! Let's go to Dave at the bench.
Oh, what a shot, Gord.
Last time we spoke, you had been really tired. Not anymore. Yeah, snoring all night. Losing sleep ruins your game.
Problem snoring? Suffer from sleep apnea? Invest in yourself. Call Dr. Paulette Pillersdorf. She'll use her laser to help treat your snoring and oral appliance like a sports mouth guard for your sleep apnea. Your partner will thank you.
Thanks, Gord. Book your appointment with Dr. Paulette Pillersdorf. Call 647-243-2006.
A serious car accident can turn your life upside down, but a team of trusted legal and medical experts can get it back on track. I'm David Himmelfarb, HimPro's managing partner. Let our team of highly rated injury lawyers build you a winning case fast to deliver a big settlement. This proven system for success is the HimPro Advantage, and it's real. Call 833-4HIMPRO or visit himpro.ca today. HimPro, serious results for serious injuries fast.
HimPro. As Canada stares down economic uncertainty, we're ready with a plan to protect Ontario. We're fighting to defend every job, building new nuclear facilities, speeding up approvals, diversifying our trade, bringing opportunity and good jobs home. Because this province doesn't just sit back, we build. That's how we protect Ontario. Learn more at ontario.ca/protectontario. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
Callum, about our relationship.
Should I call HR?
No, I mean Spence's relationship with Diamond Wholesalers.
Oh, yes. Going on 48 years. They love us and hate us.
Really?
Well, they love that we've bought a lot of diamonds over the years and pay up front. But they hate that we reject 70% of their diamonds.
We only accept 30%? That's picky.
That's why our diamonds outsparkle, like this 2-carat created oval for just under $2,600.
Or this 3-carat created oval for just under $4,000?
Extraordinary, isn't it? Stella, we're in the business of love, and love is picky.
You don't have to tell me. Try dating.
Brilliant diamonds, better prices. Come see the difference at Spence.
Across from Scarborough Town Centre, near Square One in Mississauga, and by Colossus Theatre in Vaughan.
Why switch to a Leva Sleep Adjustable Bed? Because it's a better bed. Better than your regular bed. Better than your snoring partner bed. Better than your pillow wall bed. Definitely better than the couch. A Leva Sleep Adjustable Bed is better because you can adjust your side of the bed your way and their side of the bed to the anti-snore preset. Better your relationship when you better your bed with a Leva Sleep Adjustable Bed. See why it's better. Visit one of our 6 Leva Sleep showrooms or levasleep.com.
Bet365 is paying out before the final buzzer.
Check out Bet365's early payout for NHL hockey. When you bet on a team to win and they take a 3-goal lead, you get paid, no matter the final score. And with early payout, you could be on your way to a winning parlay.
Early payout. Just another reason why it's never ordinary at Bet365. An official betting partner of the NHL. Must be 19 or older, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you or someone you know has concerns about gambling, visit connexontario.ca. T&Cs apply.
Tune in all day on Friday, March 7th for Sportsnet 590 The Fan's wall-to-wall coverage of every deal, big or small, on NHL Trade Deadline Day. Presented by your local Ontario Subaru dealers.
Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
All right, Brendo, what did we miss?
So, an interesting story I saw yesterday, I think, from a Canadian who's taking the gold medal loss pretty hard as well. But NHLer Olin Zellweger, who plays for the Ducks, he's got 143 games over 3 seasons with Anaheim. Mm-hmm. He, one of those accounts that tracks who's following who on social media. I saw.
Are those legit?
I think so. I went and checked, and I couldn't see that he was following these people, but he was not afterwards.
Yeah,
So
just mean like I see that stuff all the time. I'm like, that seems like the easiest fake news to create ever. But yeah.
for sure. But I mean, I would give whoever created this one would be pretty creative, because this guy's not exactly a household name in the league, but he from Calgary, plays with Anaheim now, like I said. But he went on a bit of an unfollow spree after Sunday's game. He unfollowed a bunch of American players, including Auston Matthews, Jack Hughes, Jack Eichel, Clayton Keller, and he threw in PK Subban in there as well. So I wanted to get your thoughts on what you think about this kind of decision making after something like this. Did you unfollow any American players? Are you interested in kind of how people are kind of digesting this differently?
I think it's the lamest 2026 thing ever, that it's like the big statement is if you unfollow someone on a social media account. I understand why he would do it, I guess, if he was feeling like he was seeing too much. He still wanted to be on Instagram, and he kept seeing these guys posts, and he was like, I don't want to see this right now, and maybe he follows them back. Like, I don't know. I don't really like his personal point of view on this. I don't find overly compelling. I think it's more interesting that it's like this is the story, but it does mean something, and we all know it. Like that we've now gotten to the point where someone unfollows someone, and it's a real shot across the bow. Like it's like the most passive aggressive thing that you can do. And I felt it too. Like I've noticed when people unfollow me, especially like I've had people at work here that do it. And when I've seen that, I've like, because I don't even know how you come, it just ends up happening, right? Like you see somebody's profile, you just notice it. And it's like insulting. I personally don't ever do it because it is so insulting. Like if I don't know the person, I just don't want to follow the account, then yeah, whatever. Like who cares? But if you actually know someone and you make that decision to be like, hey, I'm going to go to your profile, I'm going to press this button. It's basically if someone said to my face, I hate you, and someone unfollowed me on social media that I work with, I would not view them as two separate things. They are the exact same thing to me.
Do you have like a standard, like for me, and this, I'm sure we're much different, but after I've stopped kind of being close with someone or even communicating with them at all, I'm not really one to keep them in my feed more than maybe a year or two. Do you have like
crazy? I'll keep them there forever. I'll just mute them.
Right, yeah.
Mute. Because you have the mute option. Yeah. Like if it was ever actually like bothering you, if you didn't want to see it, you could just mute it and be like, okay, well, like whatever. I don't want to make that statement because I don't want to make that person's feelings hurt so badly. Good to know though that if we stop working together,
I guess I don't care.
At least now I'm not gonna feel as bad when I notice that you unfollow me when you're no longer working on the show. But I will do. I will always do I don't do the unfollow back.
Right.
I'll leave it. I'll be like, nah, I'm the bigger person.
Hey, fair.
I'm the bigger person who will just leave you muted and never see anything about you again until somebody DMs me a cringy tweet. What's next?
Some interesting comments from Angels owner Artie Moreno. He was speaking, I believe this was to a reporter ahead of spring training, but he was speaking about the team in general, and he kind of had some interesting comments about what fans are looking for, not only just from the Angels, but across baseball in general. And I think the interesting quote that caught some heat was, he said that the number one thing that fans are looking for is affordability. And believe it or not, winning is not in the top 5.
He had it. He had it. Fans do care about affordability.
100%.
And it does matter. If you have a crappy team and the ticket prices aren't expensive, then it's fine. But when you try to gouge people and have a crappy team, this is what I was talking about with tanking. One of my biggest issues with it by far, and salary caps in general, is that it didn't actually cap out the cost of going to a game. Nothing drives me more insane than the idea of going to a Raptors game and getting what you got last season.
Yeah.
Where you go down and nobody's playing, you're basically watching the G League organization, and it still costs you a few $100s and you're still paying the same concession prices. Like, that sucks. So this owner was right about the affordability. I do think that more people, like, let's be honest, more people actually do care about whether or not they can afford to buy a jersey or go to a game or buy a piece of memorabilia than they do, like, if there's a championship. That's a smaller portion of the population that's like, God, we're dying for a win, you know? And you can even say, look at the Blue Jays merch lines. When we were in the World Series, so many people all the way up the tunnel. Like, people want to be able to buy stuff that's affiliated with the team that don't care as much about the winning of the team. But to say it's not top 5 is crazy. Like they have parades for winners. It changes the identity of the city when you end up having a winner. So, yeah, I think that this is loser talk from him. Also, if he thinks that the most important issue is affordability, I want to know where they rank in terms of what they charge for ticket prices, what they charge for concession prices. Like, if I was a fan of that team, immediately I'd be like, hey, well, guess what? We're not winning. Are we affordable? Because we better be if you're staking it out there that that's the case. Flat out. Like, if you're saying affordability is the number one issue, and then you're the Angels who suck, and you've got a ticket price that is in the top half of the league, that's embarrassing. Anyway, we got to go. We'll see you tomorrow.
The courtside legend is back for a limited time. The McDonald's Raptor Chicken Nacho Poutine. Made with 100% Canadian-raised seasoned chicken, nacho cheese sauce, and tortilla strips. This one is for the fans. Order on the McD's app. Available for a limited time.
Chris Tucker, live.
That's why when people ask me for money, I take pictures of them now. I take pictures because they don't remember. They don't remember when they was crying and shit, when they was asking for the money. I take pictures of them. I say, you remember this shit? Look at this.